Good evening, everybody. Distinguished guests, the panelists, my colleagues that are here, students, and Auburn State University family. As the chair of the Criminal Justice Department, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome you at Auburn State for our panel discussion on police-community relations. The panel is organized by the Criminal Justice Department in collaboration with our graduate school, which is the Executive Director, Dr. Events in recent times made us think about having this panel to discuss the role of the police and individuals to avoid what happened with George Floyd. As we notice as of today, there are about 229 individuals killed by the police since George Floyd murder. There are 17 of them in Georgia, and we are very lucky in Albany. I think we have only one police shooting or police death since that horrible incident. The goal of our panel is to improve our understanding of the complexities of addressing police-community relations, to ask our police department some pertinent questions about what and what not to do when confronted by the police, exploring solutions or actions to increase the prevention of police shooting, which is very important, and that's one of the reasons why we are here. We would also like to extend our gratitude to all that have made this event possible, particularly our panelists who gave up their time to come here to talk with us in a family manner. The Criminal Justice Department will be holding such lectures as soon as our students come back, because they are the ones that are particularly that are concerned about this. We want to educate them on how to act when they are confronted by the police. That is why we are here. I hope you all will enjoy the presentation and debate. Thank you very much for coming.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Charles Ochia. I'm the Executive Director for Auburn State Graduate School. Thank you for coming. We appreciate you taking all your time to come. I personally thank all the panelists whom I individually invited. Thank you all for coming. I have a distinguished honor to introduce the moderator, but before I do that, I just want to say a few things. And we all know that it is very challenging to police in a diverse society. It's very hard. The United States is a country with divide people from different cultures, different values and systems and all that. And as somebody who comes from a country who has such a diverse society, I can understand how hard it is to police a society which has people from different parts of the world, who come from different parts of the world. So I know it is hard. But also, it has to be done. Policing has to be done, and I know it's hard. And people who choose to be law enforcement, I know it's hard, it's not an easy job. But it's a profession, it's a profession. And people who choose to do that kind of job should also know that the job is a professional job and has to be, it has to be done the way it's supposed to be done. As a citizen, I do have a few questions too that I always want to ask law enforcement people. And one of the questions is, and I have a couple of them, One is that, well, the first question is to the citizens, people who are being arrested. If you are being arrested by police and police stops you, and you have police cars around you, and you are being surrounded by police, and you want to run, where are you running to? Where you want to? How far can you run? Okay, so it is better for you to just settle down and do what you are told, and then if the police has done something wrong, you can file a complaint. But if you choose to run, you are putting your life in danger. So that's my message to citizens who are being arrested for anything. If you are being arrested, you don't need to run. Just calm down and obey the law. And if the police officer do something wrong, then you can file a complaint. That's my one question. Number two is to law enforcement people. If you arrest somebody and the person is down, he or she is handcuffed, he's on the ground, he is howling, he is shouting, he's calling mama, he's calling papa, he's doing everything, and you have 2 or 3 police officers around you. Why do we indulge in assaulting the suspect? Why is that? Is it necessary? That's where citizens get complaints. And I know that we do have good departments in Dougherty and the Auburn area, and I'm not saying that this kind of things happen here, but this is kind of things that happen all over the country. Okay, we've seen that. You're not hearing it from me. It's all over. You know, when you arrest somebody, a suspect is arrested, is on the floor, and he's crying, she's crying, he's doing whatever, and why do you need to indulge in some kind of assaulting, abuse and beating and all that? It's illegal. It's against what we've been taught in police academy. So that's one of the questions I have. Other questions I have is one is, do we still have to believe in a police report? There are issues about police report. You know, and I know that police people what they indulge in something is instant judgment and all that, but do we still have to believe in police report? Last question I have is, what about diversity? If you are a department and you are in a city which has 70% of this group or that group, why do you have to hire only one people from the same set of race or ethnicity or whatever? So diversity is very important. It is critical that as the police professionals, that we try to diversify the department. That will help to cut down on the complaints that you get from the citizens. Okay, those are the kind of questions I have, and I'm going to put it down to, and anybody who cares to answer can answer later on. Now, having said that, that has been on my mind for a long time. Now it's my distinguished honor to introduce our moderator. And it's not going to be a long introduction because we don't have time. But I want to say a few things about Mr. Singleton, who is our moderator. Mr. Singleton, I've known him for a long time, though. He's been at Albany Tech for 13 years. Okay? He has taught for 30 years. Okay? He has several degrees. And he's been to Albany State, Kentucky State, and Columbus State. He started his post-secondary from Auburn Technical School. He has a MPA program from Master of Public Administration. He's earned all kinds of degrees and accolades, which I don't have time to list here. And I've known him I knew him when he was a commander at APD. That's when I knew him. It's been a long time. And he's now an educator, and we really he's been a good friend. So having said that, I want to welcome Mr. Singleton, who's going to moderate this panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to take this time to thank everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to come out for this forum, and we're going to go ahead and move forward. First thing on the agenda is that we want to introduce the panelists. Most of these individuals that's on the panel I've known for many, many years. I think they are great people. I just met 1 or 2 of them here recently, and it seems as though that they're great persons too. So starting off right here to my close right, we have Sheriff Kevin Sproul, Dougherty County Sheriff. We have Chief Nicola Hammond, Albany State University Police Department Chief. Assistant Chief Tatesha Irving, Dougherty County Police. We have Dougherty County DA Greg Edwards. We have Chief Michael Persley, Albany Police Department. We have Chief Kimberly Persley, Probation Community Supervising Officer. And then we have Sergeant Santos from Albany Technical College Police Department. Welcome, panelists. As we know, this forum is dealing with COP, community-oriented policing. I think one of the first things that we probably need to do is define COP. So I'm going to read you the definition of COP based on the COP Consortium of 1994, And it says, community policing is a collaborative effort between the police and the community that identifies problems of crime and disorder and involves all elements of the community in search for solutions to these problems. It is based on the premise that police alone cannot control crime and disorder and promote residents' quality of life. So that is the definition of community policing. With that being said, I'd like to ask the first question of the panelists. What does that mean to you as a chief executive of your respective agencies?
Go ahead and start off. Thank you, Ken. Thank you to Dr. Ibe, Dr. Ochi, Dr. Griswold, and all. So first and foremost, community-oriented policing is not a program. It's a philosophy. You're not going to win the community over by giving out hot dogs and having bouncy houses. Community-oriented policing is deep-rooted within the operations of that department, along with the connection in the community. So the simplest form of a community police, well, let me go back to this. Peel's principle number 7, the public are the police are the public. The police, everyone is responsible for the general welfare, but the police are the only ones who do it full time. I paraphrase that. But the police and the community are not different, they're one and the same. So the most simplest form of community policing is a neighborhood watch. Neighborhood watch has an issue, they have officers they can talk to, and not just the police, but also other local entities, whether it's a government or a non-government entity that work together to solve the problem. That's the community policing. It's not just one entity doing everything, it's bringing it as a whole. So as when the Albany Police Department took on this back in the mid to late 90s, honestly, one of the first things that the older veteran officers said, we've been doing this all the while. So it's about establishing the relationships and the partnerships with the people in the community. And that's one of the things that we've tried to build this off of, that it's a philosophy that you have to undertake. It's not a program, something you pick up and put back down. It's something you have to build within your organization so that you can sustain your organization. And what happens is when the officers know the public and the public know the officers, you won't have some of the issues that we see happening around the country. So, thank you.
Chief Persley covered it very extensively. When I think of community-oriented policing, I think about building relationships and building relationships from the top down and the bottom up, both ways. Every man or woman that we hire at the sheriff's office, we explain to them what our philosophy is with the sheriff's office and what our objectives are. And whether you're working a housing pod with 48 inmates, or you're working out serving civil papers or warrants, or you're working the courts, whatever your duties are, you are to get to know those individuals you're around and you work with. Not just your coworkers, but everybody in your environment. And you build relationships with people. Do they happen overnight? No, it takes many years. 1991, while teaching high school Sunday school at my church, I had boys coming to me telling me that the police don't listen to them. The police do this, the police do that. I go to this high school and I go to this school and this is what I see. So I went to my sheriff at the time and said, may I, on Fridays, spend time with the kids in the schools? And I started going in the middle schools and the high schools. John I. Davis and Michael Manning at Mary Acres allowed me the opportunity on a Friday. And after a few months, it blossomed into where I was there every Friday, building relationships. Some of those kids I built relationships back in the 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, they work at the Dougherty County Sheriff's Office now, or has worked at the Sheriff's Office. Many of them has gotten to see firsthand what we deal with every day because they got to ride with me back in the day. They got to see what I saw and what went on. So I think when you're dealing with society and all the dysfunctional and the disorders that go on with society, you've got to be able to understand individuals where they're at. You got to walk in their shoes. And that takes a special person. Not every person can be a street cop or a deputy sheriff or a jailer. It takes a special individual. I've always said you almost have to be called to that position because you're sure not going to get rich doing it. There's not money in this industry. You do it because you want to see your society, your place where you live, your community be a better place to live. That's my philosophy of community-oriented policing.
I heard in your responses that you were talking about relationships. So in other words, that is a two-way street, am I right? So it is not just the police concern. It's not just a police problem. Who is a part of that whole solution?
The citizen. We need the citizen as much as they need us. They're our eyes and ears. And if we don't have the trust of the citizens, we have nothing as law enforcement, in my opinion. I mean, we can police and do all we can do until the sun doesn't come up, but it's not going to work. You need the trust of the citizens, and you need them to be able to trust us as much as we trust them, and we need them as much as they need us, if that makes sense.
So how can we, or what has the criminal justice system done to build upon this trust? Any strategies that all of you may have put in place for your respective departments, and what are you doing to get the citizens abreast of what community-oriented policing is all about?
I'm in my 39th year with the Sheriff's Office. I'm in my 13th year as the elected sheriff of Dougherty County. In 2008, in July of that year, when I was elected, before I went to my sheriff's elect training in November, I got with several of my staff members and I began to sit down with inmates in the Dougherty County Jail. I visited almost every pod and talked to almost every man or woman that's locked up. Chief Deputy Daniels and myself did this for days on end. We wanted to know what was going on in their lives, why they were incarcerated, what could we do to help them get out of incarceration, what issues were they having with staff members. And I also met with every staff member that worked with us, and we recorded every conversation. We gave them a sheet to answer questions, and then they asked us questions. We wanted to get to know each other because when I took office on January the 1st of 2009, I wanted to make sure I had the right people in the places where I thought they needed to be. My chief jailer over here, Chief Ostrander, is sitting over here, and my chief deputy, Taryn Hayes, but John took his position in 2010, I want to say, in the summer of 2010. And when we get a complaint, I always tell him, you call that mother, that father, that grandparent, whoever it is, and explain to them what is going on with John back in the back, or Jane, or whoever it is. We're going to be transparent. We need transparency. When we see these things go on across the country, the first thing we do is get with our training division and say, how does Georgia law apply to what just happened? For example, the chokehold in Minnesota with George Floyd. We don't train on chokeholds. I'm in my 39th year. We've never trained on chokeholds in Georgia that I'm aware of. So we look at every case. Whenever there's a shooting or a high-speed chase or whatever it may be that causes the death of an individual or serious injury, and we want to see what training they had or what training we're going through and how we can be better. And that plays into community-oriented policing also.
So how can the public get involved? How can they learn more about this? Is there any things that you all have in place for the public?
One thing, and we've had this one for years, is the Citizens Police Academy with the police department. And it's what it is, we take citizens and we'll go through, this is what the police department does. We take them on, we have the DA come in, talk about the DA's perspective. I think one of the best parts of it is they get to go to the 911 center, understanding that when you call and you say, I need the police right now, they finally understand that this person who's asking you 20 questions is not dispatching, that's the call taker. And while you're giving them information, they're sending the information to the dispatcher. So when people get so frustrated, say, you need to send the police right now. No, it's a process. So now they're learning more about the process. And then we end it with a ride along. And that's the real eye opener part of it. Something we started about 7 years ago is a teen police academy, to where we're targeting middle school, high school kids and bringing them through. So it's not for the whole purpose that for them to be police officers, but we want them to understand it. And we use the teen police academy more so to get them in the mindset of doing public service. So those are two of the things that we've used over the years. And yeah, COVID put a halt to we have two sessions that have been halted for over a year, but we will start those back. Another thing that we were doing to help the community understand what the police do is just having a ride-along. We've just started back with using ride-alongs and letting people understand. You may see all this and that on the TV, but look at it from our viewpoint and see what we see. So those are just some of the open things. We will have other parts. We collaborate with the district attorney's office. We have a firearm safety training. They get to, you think you're going to come in there and just shoot a gun. No, first and foremost, the DA is going to explain to you the laws of Georgia when it comes to firearms. We have, from time to time, we will have some type of special town hall event. Here recently, due to COVID, every month I've been hosting a virtual town hall, different topics that kind of relate to issues in the community. So we found a lot of ways to, how can we continue to push information out to people? And we know that we just can't rest on our laurels, that we have to continue to find whatever way, whatever sort of medium we can contact people. But the more educated the community is about the criminal justice system, then the better they will respond to situations. And the biggest thing from the the Citizens Police Academies that we get is that they can be advocates for us. Some of our biggest naysayers have learned a lot from the Citizens Police Academy. It's not saying that they agree with 100% of what we do, but at least they understand. And when they communicate that to the public, now the public is more informed.
Well, Chief Hammond and Sergeant Santos, how does campus law enforcement engage the community in building positive relationships?
Thank you. So as Chief Persley said, you want to bring people in, you want to have that transparency. But one of the things that you have to do is reach people where they are. We know that this is a new age. Folks believe everything they see on the news. We have 24-hour news cycles that are giving people information so that now they're not just concerned with what's going on in Albany, Georgia. They're concerned with what's going on in Albany, New York. Because they're seeing what's going on in Albany, New York, and while they may not see the exact same thing happening in Albany, they want to know how they can prevent that from happening in Albany. So what we have to do as law enforcement is to meet people where they are. So we can't just wait to always invite them in and think that everyone is going to want to engage with us. We have to be able to publish our wins. We know that folks are on social media. We need to engage them on social media and let them see the good things that we are doing and not wait until something bad happens for the news to be publicizing, those bad events. So engagement. Also, don't be afraid to be transparent. Let people know that what their rights are. So if you file a complaint against a police officer, what are your rights as a citizen as to see what that process looks like? But also let the citizens know what the rights of police officers are, because many citizens don't know that, police officers have rights just like any other employee in any other job. So we can't just make a rash decision simply because a complaint is filed. There is a process that has to go, that we have to go through. Let them know that they have a right to see if that employee has ever had any other, complaints filed against them, and how we actually investigate those complaints. Also, let them know what their rights are when a police officer engage them. Let them know what questions they can ask, or if they can even ask questions. A lot of people just do not know their rights. And so as police officers, a part of community-oriented policing is that we have to be educators, especially in a campus law enforcement agency, because many times our students, this is the first real contact they're having with any government entity. And on-campus law enforcement, if that engagement on our campus is negative, then it makes it bad for everyone else at this table. Because if we get it wrong, the county will get it wrong, the city will get it wrong. That engagement will be negative. And it's vice versa. We have to educate them on how to engage with law enforcement in the city and what things they have to avoid doing in order to avoid law enforcement, so that their negative interaction with law enforcement in the city doesn't also impact their relationship with us on campus.
Can you please discuss prosecutions of police who assault citizens?
I would say that is one of the critical things that I have to engage in terms of dealing with issues involving allegations of, misconduct by police officers. That is, I have to look at the case. One of the things that we normally do in this process is we bring in independent investigative agencies such as the GBI for local events. And we take that information, we process it like any other investigation. And if there's probable cause to believe that there's misconduct on the part of the officer, we engage. We've had, in our jurisdiction, we've had instances of allegations of police, homicides have occurred with police officers, and we've taken that approach. The other thing that I have done in a prior police-involved shooting and death was what we call a civil grand jury. And that is a process whereby citizens will review the allegations of the alleged misconduct and will make a decision about whether or not, number one, the officer should be charged, or number two, what the charges will be. So that's the process that I follow when engaging in investigating alleged police officer misconduct. We treat the case just like in terms of our review, seeking evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the standard for any crime as alleged, and we kind of go from there. So those are the things that we do. I wanted to comment a little bit about one of the things that was raised about how can the public get engaged, if I may. And one of the things that is important to get the public engaged with is helping the police, has already been stated. I think one of the things that were the obstacles to these things are threefold. When we're talking about police getting information from citizens, one of the obstacles is this notion of don't tell, don't snitch. Snitches get stitches, or whatever the popular phrase may be, is one of the things that arises. And so we don't get cooperation from the public for those types of, thoughts. And one of the things about that, I think there are three reasons for this view. Number one, it's a pop culture thing. A lot of pop culture talks about, don't tell the police, don't engage with the police, don't help the police no matter what it is. You have, stories about big stars, pop stars, rap stars, talking about what they would never do to assist the police. So we have to deal with culture. The second thing that is a factor in this thing is actually sometimes genuine fear. And that is, people really believe what they see on TV about, gang members doing this or gang members doing that. And they are literally afraid of, providing information to the police. And that's one thing that's, that's something, again, you just have to assure the people that, you can't live in fear, and living in fear only, encourages more criminal behavior. The third thing is this, that even though there are people who are not afraid, who are not being controlled by pop culture, they just don't believe that the system is going to be fair to people who are being dealt with by the police. And those are people who would say, well, I just don't think this individual is going to be treated fairly, and thus, even though I know I should tell, I want to tell, I should tell, but I'm not going to tell because I don't think he's going to get a fair shake. Like, I'm working backwards from these things. What I would say about, for those persons who are not willing to help because they don't believe that people are going to get a fair shake with the criminal justice system, I say the best way to deal with the criminal justice system is to engage the criminal justice system, take part in all the process, take part in being a juror, take part in being a grand juror. Go down and take part in the whole process, and you can make sure that if the system is working, you're making it work right. So that's the number one way to deal with that particular issue. As far as people being afraid, again, you just have to convince folks that they shouldn't live in fear. And one of the things that I have tried to do in terms of engaging that aspect of it is talking to our faith leaders. One of the things that I've been doing in the past couple of years, until kind of hindered by the COVID, was having what I call a faith leaders informational seminar. What I have all the faith leaders in the area come in, and we would, because generally what happens, the first person that a lot of people call is going to be their pastor or their priest about what's going on in their situation. So it's important that our faith leaders, who are usually going to be the first persons that a family or an individual might contact for some assistance in the legal process, that they are aware of what's going on and how the legal system works, because there's a lot of misinformation that some of them have. And so it's important that we educate them. And I've been engaging in that activity up until we've had the COVID kind of delays. And again, they're important to help fight the pop culture. That is, we need many voices that will, speak against, not bringing people to justice that need to be brought to justice. The people that, advocate, don't snitch, don't tell, are the ones that are gaining from that. And so we must actively engage in all voices to turn that around. So those are the obstacles that, I would submit are there, and some of the things that we can begin to do to try to reverse that.
Thank you, sir. Chief Kim Persley, I have a question. Do you have many officers within your probation unit?
Do I have many officers? Well, from the Department of Community Supervision, from a local standpoint, the number of officers that we currently have is 15 within my unit. From a statewide perspective, we're looking at about 2,500 employees within the department as a whole. And our duties and responsibilities basically is to enforce the conditions that have been imposed by the judiciary and or by our parole board, ensuring that those individuals that are under supervision, that they are doing what's required of them. And if there is any violations, then we make sure that we're taking swift and appropriate action to address those violations.
Okay. Now, does your agency work hand in hand with the local agencies here as far as promoting community-oriented policing?
Absolutely. I do not believe that we could not function without the other. All of us sitting at this table have excellent rapport with each other. We're no strangers to each other, and therefore, if there's anything that happens within the city of Albany or Dougherty County, we, because of the rapport and the relationship that we have established, that rapport is intact. It is our belief that from a holistic standpoint, we have to engage one with the other. You do not want to wait until something happens in order to have to knock on the door to a stranger. And because of the collaboration between not just the local police departments or the local agencies, but we have the community partnership here. And that is a very unique standpoint that the Dougherty Circuit has when you look at from a statewide standpoint.
Thank you. This question is to all panelists. Can police shoot a fleeing felon?
I'll give you the general answer to that, and the general answer is is generally no, but there may be some exceptions where it may be necessary to use deadly force to apprehend an individual. But we will look at those individual situations on a case-by-case basis. One of the things I would emphasize when I wanted to add to my response about dealing with prosecutions of criminal allegations against police officers, it has been a very useful tool for officers to engage in their body camera. And the body camera footage protects both the officers and the public. And, you know, what we would like to see is that this body camera usage is carried out in all instances, and it has been an effective tool in finding the truth. And so that's one thing I would say. So in the answer to your general question, it's going to be a case-by-case basis, but a general proposition, you can't shoot fleeing felons. But like I said, each case must be evaluated for a lot of different issues to make sure that, you know, you're making the right decision.
Next question. How are law enforcement officers maintaining presence on social media platforms to support COP efforts?
So within our department, we, as with most law enforcement agencies, we have a Facebook page, Twitter account, Instagram. I think we even have a YouTube channel. Well, the city has a YouTube channel. Understanding that, so we're fighting this information campaign. You know, we have to push out, from the law enforcement standpoint, especially Auburn Police Department, one of the things that our mandate is that we always try to push out a good news story very often, because the general public will hear all of the negative that goes into law enforcement. So if there's a negative incident shining a light on law enforcement, that goes viral, and that's all you see. What the public doesn't see is what the men and women of all of these agencies here, and I'll just talk about here in Albany and Dougherty County, all the great things we do every day. Nobody hears about that. Nobody cares about that. Only thing people care about is, you know, here's the next time. So on our end, we have to push these good news stories out. And that's from whatever it is we do, whatever we're doing on our return on the investment to the public. So understanding that in this day and age, and this goes, and I say this to any organization, if you do not have a presence on social media, you are that much further behind, because people live on social media and they go by more so what's on social media than what you may print in a newspaper or even put in a book.
Thank you. What can we do about juvenile crime in our city and counties?
That's a multifaceted answers to that. One of the things we're trying to do to prevent juvenile crime in our city for many years now, we've worked with the youth in our schools. This past year, Chief Michael Persley of APD, the Albany Police Department, and myself sat down, and we come up with a collaborative effort with Captain Ted Thomas and several other men and women who are working with the Albany Dougherty Youth Unit. There's many individual programs within that unit to address elementary, middle, and high school students to build those relationships. Right now we have 136 kids that will be graduating this Friday from a 5-week summer camp. They've been on field trips. They've been at Mary Acres learning about policing, learning about almost every facet of life that you can learn about in 5 weeks, and to get to build relationships with these men and women. And I think that is one of the most important, is to prevent it, to get to them ahead of time as early as you can. We've had kids from the ages of 8 to 16 at this camp intermingling with each other and getting to know each other and build life skills with each other. That's the approach that I like to take first and foremost, that we use.
All right, to tag along with that answer and the question, it says we have APD, DCP, Sheriff, ASU, PD, ATC, PD. How do you all work together to keep Albany Dougherty safe? I think you alluded to that. Can you give us a little bit more meat and potatoes with that? Some of the other agencies also.
Yes, most of the people sitting at this table up here grew up and all of us wasn't fortunate to go to Albany High, but we did make it through high school and the various schools, and we all love our communities. And I'm going to take a slam at Chief Persley because I know he'll come back and get me, but we all know each other very well. We all know the ranking officers in our agencies. Some of us at this table have had officers that worked with each of our agencies. And we work real well with each other. We've worked with civic groups and individual people who have brought groups together like Stop the Violence and other groups that we've all worked across the table with each other. I know as the sheriff, I'm considered constitutionally the chief law enforcement executive officer of Dougherty County, but I don't throw that at them. I work with them. I need my sister agencies as much as they need us. When we're apprehending a subject who's broken into somebody's home or their car, John Doe out there doesn't care if DCP makes the case or APD or SO or Albany State, whoever. They want the subject apprehended and they want their car back or their belongings brought back to them or to be prosecuted through the court correctly. So we leave all that at the door when we go to work. We work to ensure our community is as safe as possible every day, and whatever it takes, we're there to help each other.
To go along with Sheriff Sproul said, the most important thing is forming a relationship and constant communication with one another. We assist all agencies and making sure that we keep the entire community safe. One of the things that we say is crime has no boundaries. Crime knows no city limits, line, no county line. Nobody committing a crime is going to stop and say, oops, I'm in the city. I better go to the county and do it. And so it's a collaborative effort on each one of us.
Good. And as we mentioned earlier, COP is a two-way street. It's not just policing or criminal justice, it's the whole community. So this question asks, what can local leaders do about addressing black-on-black crimes in Albany and the surrounding cities?
Well, it gets back to what I was alluding to about making sure that the people who are in leadership roles, primarily our faith leaders, are out front with this issue that, we have to support the police in their efforts to bring safety and to protect their citizens. And so it's important that our faith leaders and other governmental leaders, for that matter, not necessarily faith leaders, but our governmental leaders and our faith leaders in particular who are out front, emphasize the need for our citizens to support law enforcement and do all the things they can do, number one, to participate in the system, make sure it's fair, and participate in supporting keeping everybody safe, both in neighborhood watch circumstances and just in general.
So one part about the leaders in our community, from the government, faith-based, and even nonprofit organizations. I got my hand slapped at a meeting a couple of years ago because I stood up and talked about black-on-black crime, and I was almost shunned, and I said I should have called it crimes of proximity. Well, listen, this is Albany, Georgia. We know that in our community that the people who are suffering the most are folks who look like me, and we go back and forth with each other. So how do we handle that? Well, one of the things is, two things. Well, let me say this. We're not going to arrest our way out of the problem. What we need to help from the leaders is intervention and prevention. People who have programs, that they can impact whomever at whatever social issue they may have, get out there and get involved. If you have one of the programs we work with is a cognitive behavioral therapy and intervention type program. Get out there where you're at. So from the leaders, it goes back to the whole community process, and you want to talk about a holistic viewpoint. What community organization, nonprofit or maybe for-profit, and they want to dedicate time, volunteer time, but go after the people who are most at risk. And right now, our most at-risk group are the ones who are 11 years old all the way up to 17. Those are our most at risk. So what I would say to everyone, regardless where you're at, whatever time, resources, or whatever you may have, partner up with some groups who will go and address those people. Matter of fact, partner up with the school system and help the school system out because they truly need it to meet the needs of that group.
Do you think the racial makeup of a community's police department should be similar to the racial makeup of the community it serves? Or is this unnecessary?
No, it's completely needed. Now, I will go further. Don't get excited when I sit here and tell you that the city of Albany is like 75% African American, about 22% Caucasian, and then the rest is other. And I come back and tell you, well, the department is like 78% African American, about 20% Caucasian, and then the other 2%. Don't get excited about that because we need to go further. Diversity just on the top, just by what it looks like. How diverse are we inside within our leadership ranks? How diverse are we inside within age and respected to certain areas? So when you look at any law enforcement agency, that's one thing to judge about. Look at it. Does that agency mirror or represent that organization? Most of you in here are, practitioners and study. Ferguson. You go back and look at Ferguson. You have a police department like 53 officers. Maybe they had 1 or 2 black officers, but the community that they served was majority black. I'm not saying it was going to be any problems, but it turned out to be some. And when you look at that, that goes back to, that leads into some other things. What's the culture of that agency? What is the relationships that they have? So to go back to your answer, yes, diversity is very important. And that department has to, it should mirror as best as possible. Maybe not down to the exact number, but they need to reflect the demographics of that community. And that goes toward building that trust with the community and adding legitimacy to that department.
Okay. Now, with that being said, should cultural diversity training be a required component of police training? Should this be mandated by the state or left for you as a executive to say if you're going to have diversity training or not?
It's already mandated in Georgia, and we've been handling cultural diversity classes for years.
Okay. Now, how often is that training? Is it once a year? You go through the police academy?
When a cadet goes through the academy, they go through it, and then once a year we have updated training on it.
Mr. Edwards, what efforts are in place by a district attorney to make sure that wrong people are not sent to jail?
Well, the fundamental job of the prosecutor is to seek the truth. My job is to find out what the truth is and do what is right based on the facts, based on the law. And so, I tell myself that every day Greg Edwards wants to have a gut check to make sure that Greg Edwards is doing the right thing with his cases. I mean, you can get into the notion that, and my observation has been in my years of prosecution that probably sometimes about 97% in my estimation of people who are charged with crimes are probably involved with the crime as charged. There may be another 2% that may not be charged correctly, or they might have done something different, or not what they're charged with, and then there's a percentage of people that actually are innocent, and I have to make sure that I don't get to a point where I'm just processing people without making sure that we're doing the right thing, making sure that the evidence is there for that particular individual, for that particular individual case. I mean, crazy as it may seem, you've seen people, you hear stories about people being framed. Yeah, does that happen? Yes. And so, like I said, I tell my prosecutors that work in my office that we should make sure that we're always doing the right thing based on the facts, based on the law, and making sure we're always doing the right things. Again, the prosecutor's role is to make sure the truth is presented. And we just have to do that. That's just part of what the responsibilities and discretion of of the prosecutors. That's our responsibility and duties in the judicial system. So I try to adhere to that, and I ask that my prosecutors adhere to that, and just try to make sure that justice is served appropriately.
Why are some DAs willing to use their power to no prosecute certain crimes like marijuana, and why do others simply prosecute, since DAs are mandated to ensure justice and not just prosecute?
Well, that's it in a nutshell. Prosecutors should apply the law, but the law should be applied in the best, fairest, most, correct way that it should be applied. And prosecutors have great discretion. But notwithstanding that discretion, you are required to follow the law. And that is a big issue when you have some prosecutors who will, enforce certain laws and others will not. But of course, those prosecutors, myself, everybody is subject to the vote of the people to maintain their jobs. If the people are not satisfied that prosecutor is not engaging in what the law should be and how it should be, appropriately dealt with, then the citizens should remove that person. And that's what you can do. But again, as far as the general notion of enforcing the law, that is the duty of the district attorney to enforce the law as it stands. Again, there's great discretion. But that discretion must be based on fairness, justice, and making sure that the oath of the prosecutor, that is to seek the truth, is followed.
Chief Kimberly Persley, we know that people will be incarcerated, and we know that people will be getting out of prison or out of jail, et cetera, et cetera. Are there any strategies or any programs that you all have in place for re-entry to the society?
Currently, our agency, from a local standpoint, have what we call the Community Impact Center. Prior to a person being released from prison, we want to do an assessment of what their needs will be once they are released to the community. When they are placed on probation, our office at that point do an assessment, and it would determine what the needs are for those individuals. The Community Impact Center is a one-stop shop where that individual can go and actually have all of their needs met at one time. For example, if they're lacking in employment or education or mental health or substance abuse, we have the community partners who have partnered with us, and they can come to the Community Impact Center, which is located at the Goodwill Industry on South Slappy, North Slappy, and that is a location to where they can come and have all of their needs met at one time. And so from the reentry standpoint, we want to make sure that we're meeting the need of those individuals, and whatever that takes as far as us having to meet with them on an individual basis and ensuring that those needs are being met.
On that same line, dealing with probation, are you familiar with the SB 105, early probation termination? Okay, can you address that?
Sure. SB 105 actually went into effect on May 3rd of 2021, and basically it is the behavior incentive date. A person that has been sentenced to probation after 3 years, if they meet a criteria, then they're eligible to be placed eligible to be terminated from probation. Those criterias basically means that that person, from the date that they've been placed on probation by the court, they have not had a revocation within 24 months of their time, nor have they been arrested for any other offense, for non-serious traffic offenses, and that they have paid their restitution in full. If they have met those criteria, then by law, they are now eligible to be terminated from probation. There is a review in which will take place between the judges and the district attorney's office for a review, and after that approval has been submitted by those two entities, that person then becomes eligible to be terminated from their probation sentence, and is based on what we consider good behavior, compliance with their conditions of probation.
The next question is, what kind of procedural or operational changes do your departments have to make to institute community policing? Are there any changes or anything that you have in mind that you're going to enhance your COP initiatives?
I will say that we'll just look for other opportunities. For example, we're partnering with Aspire on a grant to have a co-responder program. And what a co-responder program is, Aspire will put a certified clinician with partner up with one of my officers. These two will respond to those mental health, substance abuse calls, and instead of us going to the call and then we have to contact, find out, can they go to Aspire? Do we need to take them to Phoebe? Do we need to do that, call that crisis line? It kind of cuts all of that out, and the clinician can make the decision on the spot. With that, now instead of the police showing up and this person is in an episode, what if we're able to make contact with people? For example, as a law enforcement officer, I can't ask Aspire who their clients are. But if I have a clinician with me, that clinician will say, we need to go check on this person, this person, this person. So if they catch them before they have an episode, instead of them ending up going to Phoebe or the hospital, maybe they need to go see their doctor. Maybe they need to get their medicine. With that whole purpose, that was the co-responder program has been implemented across the country, in not everywhere, but across the country. And we want to use that to show how we're working with Aspire and on the mental health standpoint, because the majority of calls that we encounter, it's a mental health issue. Or if not a mental health issue, it's going to be a substance abuse issue.
What do you all think are some of the major factors behind crime in Albany?
A lack of education. Poverty does play a role in it. And we do have a gang problem here. When you don't have, and I'm going to give this short thing, I'm going to come back. This is just me. I'm not speaking on behalf of any other agency. This is just me. I feel as though that the reason we're in the position we're in now is because of what we did in the 80s and 90s when it was during the war on drugs. The reason I say that is you're talking about 2, 3, maybe 4 generations that were lost because of whether they died as a result of an overdose, maybe they died as a result of being involved in some kind of drug conflict, or either they have been in and out of prison since the late 80s, early 90s. 3 strikes, you're out. Well, those people who we dealt with then, potentially those who were living, they had children who had children who had children. So what you've seen is just a breakdown of the family system. So what's the root causes? It's in the social justice system, home, schools, and the churches, faith-based. Homes, you got to break down within the educational system. Listen, the teachers, they're out there on the front lines just like we are. I think they're having a tougher time than we are trying to educate people. So when people don't have education, if our graduation rate continues to go down, our crime rate will continue to go up. And then in the faith-based organization, in churches, the same people they want to fill the pews are the same people we trying to get off the streets. So when you have the education, the poverty, and then a lack of morals and values, those are things that contribute to the factor. And when I bring up the issue about the gangs, when you can't get something at home where you should, you're going to get it from somewhere. Well, that's what we're getting now. So COVID did not help at all, but because of the breakdown in these social needs, is that gives a way to crime. I heard somebody say it's hard to tell a person who's hungry not to steal. All right? If you ain't got any money in your pocket, you're going to find a way to get money. If that means I'm going to break in the car and steal your gun that you left in there for me because you left your car unlocked, I'm going to do it. So until we start to address some of these social needs and issues and concerns, we're going to continue to fight with this, with the crime the way it is here in our community. So that goes back to the community part where we need the nonprofits and faith-based and other organizations to help deal with those social issues that we're facing today.
Back when I was policing, we had programs, and you alluded to this when you first started talking, about neighborhood watch programs. your Business Watch programs. How are those programs at this time?
Neighborhood watches we're hurting here. A lot of people who were very dedicated to it, they've either moved away or they've gotten older. We still have some active neighborhood watches. We have some that are starting back, but I think the biggest challenge is that you have people who want to go do, but they need the support. And we have to find out how to best support them with the resources that we do have. But those who are willing, that's who we need to work with. Do we need more? Yes. One of the things, and since Commissioner Howard is here, he brings it up, I'll bring it up with him. Albany they're almost more transient people who live here than homeowners. So if I'm just here for a few years and I'm gone, then what interest do I have vested in that community? So we're having less homeowners here, which is one of the factors when it leads into having active, healthy neighborhood watch organizations. So the business watch part, that's a little struggle too. But and for those who don't know, a business watch is a commercial version of a neighborhood watch. If you remember, back in the day, we used to go into a store. Somebody who wrote a bad check, they put their check and their picture on the wall. Okay, businesses talked, so we can get that up and functioning well across the city and the county. That's just another way of keeping people informed, what to be on the lookout for, how to better protect yourselves, and just support each other overall.
Now, does any of your departments have what we call a community relations section, crime prevention unit? And if so, what type of programs are those units responsible for?
Well, with the sheriff's office, we have a community relations with every one of our departments in one way or the other. We do have a crime prevention intervention unit who handles issues with families and children, things along those lines that may come from that. But whether it's our investigations division or our jail division or wherever you're discussing within the sheriff's office, there is somebody that's going to handle the issues that come up and be a liaison with the community or have a relationship with the community. It may not be me, it may not be the chief deputy or the chief jailer, it may be a sergeant or it may be a captain or a lieutenant, but somebody in each of those prospective areas will address that with the sheriff's office.
For the city, we do have a community relations unit. It consists of our crime prevention officers. These are personnel who are trained. For free now. We will come out and do a home survey and a business survey, give you recommendations. Part of our community relations unit are our community safety officers, where we're and what a CSO is, someone who is they can do everything a police officer can do except write tickets and arrest people. But we're going to train them also to be crime prevention specialists, so that now instead of me having 2 or 3 officers, I can have up to 10, and hopefully in the future, if Commissioner Howard will give me some more money, I can have up to 20 of these community safety officers. And what they will do is just that. The more we put out crime prevention awareness and give you techniques, again, it's educating the community. So if the return on the investment is someone to say, hey, I did cut those bushes down, I did put up cameras, I did put up better light, I actually got an alarm system, I actually got a video surveillance system that works, and if that helps reduce the amount of crime that their problem, then that's a win. So that's what we want to, that's what we're going to, not want to, that's what we're going to expand on in the future. And it put less of a burden on, you don't have to have an officer come out there and take a report, because we gave you recommendations and suggestions on how to better protect yourselves.
At Albany State University, we also have a crime prevention officer. He's a community liaison, and he is also certified, a certified crime prevention specialist. So the same thing as the chief said, that crime prevention specialist does engage with the university, with the staff members, and how to keep themselves safe, not only on campus, but when they're also out there in the community. They also engage with our student body. They engage with them from summer camps to new student orientation, and also throughout the year, also hold several programs to educate the community. We even bring in the city and county agencies so they can meet those folks within the city and the county, and so they can learn how we work together to protect them as well.
Now, you all mentioned earlier that you feel as though that we do have a gang situation here in the city of Albany, Dougherty County. Okay, so this question, what are some of the barriers to community policing when it comes to our younger people? So I'm just assuming that when you say a gang situation, what age group are we talking about? And then is there a concern with getting over the mindset, getting over the practice of community policing to our younger crowd?
To talk about the age, I did mention 11 to 17. You can drop that really down to like 8, their influence at that age. That's the challenge today is how do we meet them? We have done, I will tell you one of the things that we started and is a focus group. Go to the teams, talk to them, and hear what they have to say. Because if we don't do that, we will mess around and make some decisions and choices that will affect them in the next 5 to 10 years, but we won't be around or we won't be concerned about it, but they will be. That is a group that, honestly, if we ignore them, we're going to fail here. So we have to hear what they're saying and listen to them, go to them. Once again, Commissioner Howard here, I'm going to put him on the spot. The last year, Albany High School had a graduating class, let me say that. There were 40 seniors it was career day, and Commissioner Howard asked the question, how many of you going to college? All 40 of them raised their hand. He then said, how many of you coming back to Albany? Only 3 did. We just looked at, I don't know what percent that is, but 37 out of 40 of our best and brightest said they're not even coming back here. So we need to start listening to them and hear what they're telling us that's going to happen.
Through our CHAMPS programs, our Choosing Healthy Activities and Methods Promoting Safety program, there's a module in there on gangs, and it's an interactive module between the student and the officer that's in the classroom. That has opened up a lot of avenues with our kids over the years and getting to know them better. We talk about ages. The youngest man that I've ever met or boy that I ever met that said he was in a gang was a 6-year-old first grader years ago. His uncle had come out of prison and indoctrinated him into the gang to where he knew more than I knew as an officer at the time. The oldest person I've ever dealt with in Albany that was in a gang was 42 years old. But it's these 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds that we're trying to catch at a very early age. And we're fighting an uphill fight, but we're in the fight. We're not going to quit. If we can turn one of them around, 2 of them around, 3 of them around, it's successful, because every life we can save, that's another life that I don't have to see in the Dougherty County Jail or read about in the obituary.
I'm going to put Dr. Emmett Griswold on the spot, Vice President at Auburn Technical College. In reference to doing things for our young people, Dr. Griswold, can you talk to the panel and the audience a little bit about some of the internship programs that we have at Albany Tech?
You know, listening to some of the comments from the panelists about, especially Chief Persley, Kim Persley, about inmates returning back to society. And there's 2 main ingredients for inmates to be successful when they return to society. One is they got to have a stable home, and 2, they got to have gainful employment. So what Mr. Singer was talking about, the internships opportunity that we offer at Albany Technical College, we have various relationships with companies and corporations within the community and within the region that are not only paying very lucrative salaries and careers, but career opportunities for individuals who can start their lives over, such as the Marine Corps Logistics Base, P&G, truck driving. Our truck driving program is an 8-week program. An individual can finish in 8 weeks, 2 months of sacrifice of your life, and you got to try real hard not to make $50,000 a year just starting out. You got to try real hard not to. And there's potential to make even over $100,000. So 2 weeks of sacrifice of your life that you can gain employment and change your life around. So what we want to do, again, education is key, but also information as well. So we have to find a way to get people motivated to go back to work. My son just finished his first year in college, and he came home and got a summer job working at Target. And he has worked 10 days straight because nobody wants to come to work. And he can't understand it. And I said, son, welcome to the real world. So, we got to find a way to get people motivated to go back to work. It's an issue not only for law enforcement, but in the educational realm, what we do at Albany Tech and Albany State, that we got to continue to indoctrinate the importance of being just not only a good worker, but a good person. People are missing the values of being good people, and before they can become good citizens. So the opportunities that we have at Albany Tech are available for all the individuals in this region. We service 7 counties in this region. And like Chief said, we are in a poverty-stricken area. We're in an illiterate area. We have about 40% of our population within those 7 counties don't have a high school diploma or GED. So, but that is the first step. We got to get people educated and provide the information to them, and bring the information to them and make them aware that opportunities are available and you can be successful if you put in the effort.
Thank you, Dr. Griswold. And now we're going to try to close out here. We're going to give each panelist at least 1 to 2 minutes to make a closing statement.
I want to get home and watch the Atlanta Hawks, so I'm going to be short. Don't waste my time, yeah. Don't get me started, okay? As the sheriff, as the elected official of this county, I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. It can be discouraging to look out on the audience and see how many folks are here, but knowing that social media has this running, and hopefully we've been able to speak to someone out there in the community that may be watching this tonight. And I want you to know the Dougherty County Sheriff's Office is here to serve you. It's not my office. I'm the 18th sheriff in the history of Dougherty County. When I'm dead or retired, there will be the 19th, then the 20th, and so on. The office is not about Kevin Sproul or about Taryn Hayes or John Ostrander or the 250 employees. It is your office. It's the citizen's office where I'm elected, just as the DA is. We serve at your whim. I don't answer commissioners. I don't answer a city manager or county administrator. I answer you. So if you have any issues with anything to do in Dougherty County, bring it to my attention, and if I need to forward it along the line to somebody else, I will, or I will address it personally myself. Thank you for trusting me in that position.
To echo a little bit about what the sheriff is saying, at Albany State University, we're here to listen. We're here to educate the future leaders. And we know that what we do on this campus does affect the way they see the entire world. We're here to listen. We know that we have folks that are coming into Albany from all different parts, not only of the state of Georgia, but also of the country, and laws are different. Just the other day, I had a conversation with someone trying to find out, like the question said, about prosecution of drug offenses, because it's different in some states. Marijuana is legal. But if I come on Albany State campus with marijuana, you're telling me I may be arrested or I may get a citation. We're here to listen and we're here to educate. And I can say the same for every single panelist that's here. So I thank you all for coming out and, being willing to speak and giving us the opportunity to listen.
At the Dougherty County Police Department, community policing is a big part of our department. We take community policing serious, and we try to be proactive. when dealing with any issues within the county. But we do understand that it takes the community and the police. We try to make the police, our side of it, strong and provide a safe community. We do need help from the community, and in order for it to be effective and it to work, we have to have the community. And we understand that we cannot be effective without the community. I thank you all for coming, listening to us, and allowing us to listen to you and explain ourselves to you. If there are any issues or questions, comments, or concerns that you didn't get a chance to address here, then you're free to contact me at the County Police Department.
I want to start my closing statement with just some things about what we were mentioning about the need for more law enforcement agencies or agents or persons. And one of the things that's been encouraging to me, and I'm talking from this perspective of an Albany State alumni, is that there are now going to be perhaps in the future opportunities for Albany State alumni to engage in forensic training and forensic opportunities. I am wanting to support as much as I can from my position the development of a crime lab and other resources here to encourage that academia. And something I've recently observed in some states, they are offering support by guaranteeing jobs for persons who follow criminal justice paths. So I think that that's something that, as a citizen, I want to encourage Albany State University to look at any opportunity we can develop to make sure that alumni have opportunities to work in law enforcement. Getting back to my job as your district attorney, again, one of the things I want to stress is that, we were talking about the integrity of prosecutions and making sure that justice is served. Again, I'm committed to that fully. Making sure that, again, that each case is examined for all of the appropriate issues, making sure that justice is served, making sure that our victims of crime are protected. And I mean, one of the things that I have emphasized is how we protect our children, our disabled, and our senior citizens reflects on how our community is, going to be looked at. And I mean, these are persons that we must protect and keep them safe. And that's what I'm committed to making sure is part of what I do. And I want to make sure that, again, anybody brought before the justice system in Dougherty County is not going to be beat down because of race, creed, color, or anything like that. That should never be any factor involved with the prosecution of a case. And so we make sure that that's the mindset of what's going on in the Dougherty County District Attorney's Office. Everybody's going to be treated fairly, and nobody's going to get a break because of race, creed, or color. Everybody's going to be treated fairly. Everybody's going to be treated literally as justice should be blind to all of those issues. And that's my goal, ideally, as your district attorney, and that's what I strive to emphasize as we go through our issues and our cases. And again, I wanted to make sure that the people know that the district attorney's office is available to address any issues. You can contact me, and I'm a public servant, and I want to make sure, again, that our methods and processes are transparent, as they should be, and encourage all citizens to take part in the judicial system. Make it right. Make it yours. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. I'll give you the share cell phone number later. One of the things that I hope everybody, takes away from this is what you see sitting here at this table. Honestly, I don't care wherever you go in the state of Georgia, you probably won't see anything that looks like it. We're not just here because we were asked to be here. We all have some connection with our agencies because we all have a vested interest. So if anybody wants to doctor shop with us, you can try it. We're going to talk. We're going to share information because we're all about the community. Now, one of the things that didn't come up, but I'm going to touch on it, when we talk about reimagining policing. These are three things you look for in any law enforcement agency. Look at the leadership, look at the culture, and look at how they do their training. I believe those are three factors that lead to the excellence in a law enforcement organization. Those are three things that I can say between here in Dougherty County, I have not policed anywhere else. Is that something that we work on because we don't get it right every day, but we work to get it right. And when we get feedback from the community, no matter how bad it may sound, it's still feedback we need to make sure that we get it right. And lastly, I'm going to put this plug in. I need police officers. I do. If you know anyone out there who would make a good officer, now I don't need gangsters, I don't need thugs, I don't need Hank Voights. Right there, listen, you raise your hand, I'm coming to see you afterwards. Oh, that's fine, we can get you started on the track now. I need people who are guardians. I need people who want to get out here and stand in the midst of chaos and the calmness that this community deserves. So whether it's you, whether it's somebody you know, listen, now I'm not just going to hire anybody. I'm going to hire the right people for this community because I need men and women who want to protect this community because this is the good life city. Regardless of what you may hear, this is the good life city. And it takes us internal to make sure it continues to be the good life city. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for those who are looking via the virtual platform. And let's continue this conversation. Thank you.
I echo the thanks of you guys inviting us to the table, for us being able to hear your voices and your concerns. One of the things that I took away, three things that I think are very important, and that is the community, communication, and collaboration. As citizens of Albany, Dougherty County, you matter, and you matter the most to us. We are concerned about your concern. We want to hear your voice. We want you to know that your voice does matter. And in addition to that, it takes a lot of communication. One thing for sure, none of us are perfect. We never get it right all the time. And so it's easy to criticize, to complain, but very seldom do people want to get involved. It's more easier for you to make and voice your concern, and we listen to that. But what we really want from the community is your commitment and your action to help move the city of Albany forward. So again, thank you so much for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Last one. This is what community policing is all about. You heard it. You see it. We're here for you. All we got to do is try to work together. Communication is absolutely the key. Without it, we fall flat. But thank you for inviting us.
If y'all have any questions or comments, concerns, reach out to this Chief Persley, not to me.